Capital, where we step into the ring of combat sports business. I'm your host, Ryan Rappaport. Tonight, I'm joined by Tyson Chartier. Tyson is the mastermind behind the hard-nosed team at New England Cartel. He transitioned from being a professional fighter to a top-tier coach and has been instrumental in shaping the careers of UFC standouts like Rob Font, Calvin Kattar, and plus recent Contender Series winner Connor Matthews. Known for his unique approach to coaching and his ability to forge deep, trust-based relationships with his fighters, Tyson stands as a pivotal figure in the world of MMA. Thanks for being here, Tyson. I appreciate the late night interview. How are you and where are you joining from?
Doing good, Ryan. I'm up in New Hampshire. I'm just southern New Hampshire, so I'm like 45, 50 minutes north of the airport in Boston Airport, and like 35 minutes north of the gym in Lawrence where we train at. So a little snowstorm today. We're digging out, but no big deal for a New Englander.
Yeah, as we know, it's nothing that we're both not used to. But man, I'm curious because you transitioned from being a professional fighter. You had yourself a nice little career in your coaching. Can you just talk to me a little bit about how that developed and what motivated that change and how your experiences, what you did as a fighter, is kind of born into your coaching philosophy?
So I just none of this was ever planned. You hear these cool stories about like some people just sat down, they had a vision board of I'm gonna someday coach all these fighters and I'm gonna do this, and none of that was true. Literally, it was like I watched UFC on TV. I'm like, oh, I'd like to try jiu-jitsu, so I tried a jiu-jitsu class, and then like the next day, got on a plane to Vegas to just go out for the 4th of July. Happened to be sitting next to Dana White on the plane from that 4th of July trip, and he's like, "You got to come out and watch a UFC fight." So he gave me tickets to go out for the following week, and it was like when Tim Sylvia fought Arlovsky again, I think it was, and he won, and maybe Stuart Ortiz and Ken Shamrock. But like, so I went out there and I was like, dude, this would be sick to fight one time. Just like the walkouts are cool and all this. And I was like a very new UFC fan, and so I went back and I just kept training jiu-jitsu, and then I was like, I'll do one fight, and then one fight turned into two, turned into three, and the next thing you know, like fast forward, I had 15 fights, and I was a little bit older than a lot of my teammates, like the guys like Rob Font and those guys that were on my team. They were just like guys that trained at the gym, but had never had an amateur fight, and I already had like 4 or 5 amateur fights. So I was like, "Are you guys trying to like train? Why don't you come and train with us?" And then next thing you know, like they're coming in training. They're a little bit more junior than me. I was a wrestler and as a purple belt. They're all like white belts that had never wrestled. So I'm just helping them, in practice. I'm like, well, this is how I keep taking you down and mauling you. Let's try this. Let's try this. And I just kept naturally, like, that's how I was in wrestling too. I would just help people. So I was helping all these guys. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, can you get me a fight? Because I was getting all my own fights. And then next thing you know, I'm managing guys. I'm like, this is weird. And then as I'm getting guys fights, they're like, can you corner me? They never cut weight before. Like, you show me how to cut weight. Can you corner me? Can you do this? And then just organically, like, next thing you know, like, snap your fingers. Rob Font's 10-1 and going to the UFC. And now I'm cornering UFC guys. And then other gyms locally started noticing, like, hey, can you manage this guy I have? He's really good too. And then that's how I kind of grew on the management side. And then eventually me and Rob, 3 years into his UFC career, he's like, listen, we need to make a move. Let's break off and do something. So I thought about like, all right, well, if you're not happy where you are, what can we do to try to legitimately like make the most out of your career? Because no one had ever called me a head coach before. I'd never I was running camps, but it was never like I had full say in everything that was going on. I just had ideas and I would help and I would chip in. So it was that was 2017, and I came up with the idea. Calvin tagged along. Next thing you know, we got some junior guys coming underneath, and then fast forward is like every move we've made on the team was like, all right, well, we need a couple more guys to like train with these guys in camp. Or like you bring in this guy for a camp and he's like, oh, I really love how you guys train. And then he's next thing you know, he's training for his fight. And so now we got like probably 10 pro fighters, 10, 15 the guys that just come in. And we have a lot of like the best pro fighters in the Northeast that fortunately, I also manage that are, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine. Like a lot of guys that come in and train with us, like when they're in the camp too, which is very good for us because I get to keep an eye on the guys that I'm managing, but then they also come in and get to cross train with UFC guys. And I get to just like kind of check up on what they're at. They get to help my guys get to help them. And it's very symbiotic and it's kind of, one back scratches the other. So it's very obviously self-serving because it's like I'm helping my guys I manage, but my guys I manage are helping the guys I coach. And it's just a good thing. And the team's just organically growing. We don't recruit anybody, but we have guys that are coming out and like doing camps now. Like Angel Pacheco did his camp for the Contender Series fight. He came out for a total of 6 weeks last year, but he did the last 3 weeks of his camp for the Contender Series fight. Stayed at my house, like I take one of my middle child, I put him in the older child's room, and Angel sleeps in his room. And now he's actually coming out February 25th. He's fighting in Atlantic City, his UFC debut. He'll come out February 25th to March 25th, and then we'll go to Atlantic City for his fight. Let's get him and Connor on that card. So like now we have some guys that are like don't even live in New England coming here to do camps, and then and then other amateur fighters joining the team, and it's cool, man. It's just cool to see where we're at now versus where we were at, in 2017 when it was just an idea. And I'm not going to pretend that it's all roses and everything like that, like we do on Instagram. We make everything look perfect, but it's hard. It's very hard. There's a lot of growing pains. But I think that's like any team that's having success, then not success. And success comes in waves. You're never going to win all the fights. When you're winning, everything's great. But then when you start losing fights, everybody starts like asking questions. That's when it gets hard. But you just got to trust the process, believe in the system, and like just keep trying to get better. I'm bringing in different coaches. Some of the guys are offering, hey, I like this coach, let's bring him in, and just trying to figure out like all the puzzle pieces to just keep getting better. Because I know like I can't do it myself. I'm not, show me a martial artist that knows everything. I'll show you a liar, so for me, it's like, I'm still trying to get better. As these guys climb, it's like, I have to keep learning new things. I have to keep trying to get better. I have to keep trying different things. And then as we bring more people onto the team, trying to balance all those people and then balance I know I'm rambling, but it's a lot, it's a lot. And it's like, I would say it's like, there's always problems, but these are good problems to have. It's like, oh, we have more UFC fighters. How are we going to handle this? So
Well, it's funny that
fun.
it's all like that chance encounter with Dana White, and I've got to meet Dana before, and it's just salt of the earth guy, right? Even today, and just what he's been able to build, and just that chance encounter takes you down this path, of not just training, but being a trainer, being a coach, and building those relationships. I know when I was asking around and talked to Joe Cav, who spoke so highly of you and Top Game Management, he guy has pretty low opinion of most managers, but spoke very highly of you as well. And can you just elaborate a little bit on how you kind of cultivate and maintain that trust with your athletes, particularly like in such an intense sport such as MMA?
Well, I think it was like, I think if you look at like, okay, so a lot of, why did you get into management? If you look at a lot of the managers, why did you get into management? A lot of them is because they wanted to make money. They came up with like a business plan. They're like, all right, here, I'm going to make this business. I'm going to make money. It's like, I've never coached or managed with the idea of like, I need to make money. Like when I started managing guys, I working at Oracle. I had a 6-figure job. I was doing great. I was moonlighting as this like wannabe fighter. And then coaching, I was just getting my friends fights. I was like leaving work early, dodging out to go help people cut weight, like leaving on my lunch break. I remember one time Rob was cutting weight for like a fight, and I was going home at my lunch break. He was in my bathroom cutting weight on an Airdyne, with a shower on. So it's like, it was just like, I never did it to make money. And then so I think like at every time that I've been able to make a decision, this decision's not hard. It's like, okay, what is the best move for the fighter? And I make that decision. But I think what you see in these other agencies is like a lot of them, they get in and they just like, we need to grow. And growing means like you need to keep just the UFC happy. And it's not about your guys. It's about, okay, what's the best move I can do that's best for the UFC, and what's best for my company, not what's best for the fighter. So like, I think that's just a whole different way of looking at things than I would, like, because sometimes you can maybe be a little bit more lenient on a negotiation with the UFC because it's like, all right, I'll scratch your back, you'll scratch mine on the next one, but this next one doesn't pay that first one's bills. So I draw a hard line in the sand. I call it pooling. I don't pool fighters. So like, if we're talking about Rob, we're talking about Rob. There's not going to be any mention of like, all right, well, I'll do this for you with Rob, but you got to get me back on Calvin. Like it's not and I'm not saying that's what they do, but I feel like that's their mentality. Like, I'm not accusing the UFC of anything or anything like that. I'm saying the management, that's like, if you've got 10 prospects at 155 outside the UFC, and an opening comes up at 55, and let's say of those prospects, you've had one of them under your roster for 3 years, and you just signed this other kid last week, are you pushing those two guys equally to the UFC on who should get that opening? And the answer is like, you're just saying, you see which one do you want? I don't care. Take which one, take it from. And I feel like if you're going to use integrity, what you should be doing is taking the guy you've been with for the longest and say, hey, listen, this guy's been with me the longest. He's ready to go. But instead they just probably shoot him a list of 5 guys. Let me know who you want. And there's not, is anybody really going to bat for you? To me, there's no loyalty in that. So like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being silly, but I feel like that mentality shows through to the fighters. Like, they know I'm not trying to pull one over on them. They know I'm not trying to just get rich on them. They know I'm not like doing something weird with them because it's going to benefit my company or the next fighter or anything like that. So I just think like that behavior, does shine through and it resonates. And I only promise, like, I think a lot of these agents, they go after fighters too, and they promise them like the world, like, oh, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. And I can tell you, I've had guys stolen from me from supposedly the best agents in the world, and the stuff that they tell them is insane. And I'm like, none of that is true. I was like, good luck, but like, that's not how it works. But they just tell them, they sell them the dream, and they sell them this and they sell them that. I tell fighters 2 things. Only 2 things I can guarantee. Number 1, I'll never lie to you. Which, if you've never had a manager, that doesn't seem like a big deal, right? It's like, oh, cool, you're not gonna lie. But
Yeah.
if you've had a manager, if you had friends that have managers, you realize that does set you apart, unfortunately. And number 2 is I'll be responsive. Like, if you text me, if I don't reply, I'm probably playing with my kids, I'm on a plane, I'm teaching, or I'm sleeping. And then the minute I wake up, I'll reply. The minute I get off the plane, I'll reply. The minute I'm done with my kids, I'll reply. And again, that shouldn't set me apart from other managers, but it really does. Like, I've had, some of my best friends that are with some of the, on paper, the best managers in the world. They'll text them on Sunday and get a text back on Thursday. And to me, that's just inexcusable. So I just say, like, those are the only 2 things I can promise you. They're like, well, do you have this great relationship with UFC? It's like, well, I have a relationship, but I can't just call them up and say, hey, this is what I need you to do. Like, there's no like magic pill. I can't just like snap my finger and get you in the UFC, but like, I can try to help get you in the UFC the best way I know how. So I think like that type of stuff resonates with the right fighters. There are certain fighters that'll get on that call and they're like, well, I want more of a guarantee than that. It's like, well, I can't give you that. And so they'll go with someone else. But if that's their mindset, that's not the right guy for me anyway. So the guys that I have, we do have like a semi-small roster, like 35 fighters. But it's all great people. Everybody we work with is just good people. They have good coaches. I'm in their cheering section. I can't tell you how many guys I know that are managers that I'm like, I network with a bunch of other managers too, and they hate some of their fighters. They're like, oh, I freaking can't stand this kid. He sucks. It's like, but they signed him because they thought like, oh, there's a bit of upside there. It's like, I'd rather pass on that guy. I always use this. It's like, if the phone rings and it says Ryan, right? I want to be excited. Oh, what's Ryan want? Yeah, hey, what's up, Ryan? How you doing? How's the fam? I want it to be that, not like, damn it, what's Ryan want this time? This freaking kid is so ungrateful. So I try to really like vet it out at the beginning, have 2, 3, 4, 5 conversations. And at the beginning, that was like a little harder. But as I've gotten more tenured, I have really good relationships with the coaches. And what I found is like, if you have a really good relationship with the coaches and you partner up with coaches that are like very like honest, they have integrity, and they're good people, that makes the whole process enjoyable. Because those are the coaches that are like, listen, I just want what's best for my fighter. Whereas some of these other coaches, you go to these gyms and I don't have to say names, but like they're having like partnerships with the managers. Like, I'll team up, meaning like, hey, listen, if you get any prospects, I'll work with them and it'll be the same deal. But like, I'm gonna get my percentage. You get paid by your fighter, whatever you want. But they'll literally like, if a manager's charging 20%, which again I don't agree with. I don't think any manager should be charging 20%. But they'll be charging 20%, and then they'll go to the coach, like, hey, coach, if you get any of your guys to fire their other manager, come with me. I'll cut you in. You'll make 7%. I'll make 13%. And they do that. And then the coaches do the same thing with the manager. Hey, manager, if you can get your guys to leave that other gym and come over here, I'll cut you in my coaching percentage. So there's a lot of like backdoor deals that are going on too. And I get like a lot of people being like, well, it's just like, it's a recruitment fee. But it's like, I don't believe in that, because a lot of these people that are doing it have never fought. When you're fighting, and again, I know I ramble, but
no, it's all good, bro. Keep going.
When you're fighting, there's like, other than you have your person at home. Like, I have my wife, right? But there's two people in your career, really, really two people, like your head coach and your manager are two people, and you can group other coaches into that, like your coaching group and your manager, like are the people that you should be able to trust. Like you go to them for, like, you confide in them, right? And if you like all of a sudden something happens with your manager, who are you going to go to? Hey, I'm having an issue with my manager. Like, what do you think about this? You're going to go to your coach, or vice versa. If you have an issue with your coach, like, man, my coach, I just don't. Is this right? Like, because your manager might be managing guys that are at other gyms, and then you can ask him for advice. Hey, does this seem like a weird way that we're doing things? Like, does this seem legit? My coach being shady? You're going to go to your manager. So those are trusted advisors. Like, you have to be able to go to them and say, hey, listen, I'm having this issue. Can you please tell me what to do? I'm thinking about changing gyms. What do you think? But now you have a conflict of interest, because if I'm at this gym paying my coach 10% and I'm paying you 10% as my manager, and you're only making 10% off me when I fight, and I come to you and say, hey, you know what? Like, I just feel like camp's not right. I feel like maybe it's time for Charter. Like, what do you think? And you could move me out to this other state and put me at your buddy's camp, and now you're going to make an extra 5% off me. What are you going to do? You're going to send me to the other state. So now you just made more money.
If they have the best interest, if they don't have the fighter's best interest per se.
Exactly. So there's a lot of that going on. So that's why I say there should not be any backdoor deals, because I have to be a trusted advisor, and I have to be able to look my fighter in the eye and tell him exactly what I think is my opinion is best for him. But if I have a financial interest to push you one way or the other, I'm biased. I'm 100% biased. And all these managers will be like, well, no, it's like, I'm just going to send him to the guy I think is the best anyway. Well, no, but that's not true either. Because there's no, like, I know there's fighters that could come to my camp that would not do well under our system. Right? It's not a one size fits all. That's why you see, like, ATT's a great camp, but there's a lot of fighters that leave there. You know, like, that doesn't mean it's a bad camp. It's just, it's not a camp for everybody. Just like my camp's not a camp for everybody. So for any coach to be like, well, or a manager, like, I just send them to this camp because I think that's where everybody should be. It's not true. This might not be the best fit for them. Like, you're going to tell me if you have a heavyweight, we don't even have any, we have a 170 pounder and everybody else is 170 or less. You're going to tell me if, like, I had a deal like this with a manager and he sent me a heavyweight? I'm not the best camp for a heavyweight. So I think just there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of conflict of interest, and I think the whole system is broken, but it is what it is. So that come full circle and answer your question, I think the reason why I think I have good relationships with my fighters and why my approach resonates is because they see that I'm a person that's going to be honest with them, and I have their best interests in mind, not my own.
Well, how do you balance that, man? Because you are being a manager and you're coaching, and obviously with Top Game, there's a lot going on there as well. You have a pretty good roster building up. Well, I mean, what are some of those key factors that you consider when you're guiding a fighter's career?
And on the management side?
Yeah, I mean, you're playing both roles, right? So I guess as a fighter and a manager,
just like, yeah, like all the guys in all the guys in the cartel, I'd be like wearing two hats. I'm their coach and their manager. And then there's the guys that, like, don't train with the cartel that are elsewhere, and that I just manage them. You know, you wear a different hat, and I tread very lightly. Like, I have great relationships with the coaches. Like, for example, like Emily Ducote in Oklahoma City. She trains at ATT OKC. Her head coach is her fiance, Giuliano. He's an amazing black belt, amazing MMA coach. He's got her ready for every fight. So, like, with them, like, there's literally no technical talk at all. I'm not trying to give him advice on how I think she fights. My role, that's not my role there. My role is to say, you know, here's your fighting. This is what we can do. Try to mix in some sponsors, paperwork stuff, like answer any questions, like strategize on who we think we should fight next. But that's my role, and I stay in my lane. So I really, really make it a conscious effort to not overstep. When I'm just the manager, this is my role. When I'm the coach of the manager, it's very different. And then there's some guys that, like, as we're growing, now there's guys that are coming into the room that I don't manage that I'm now coaching. And that's like a different thing. That's a learning curve now too. But again, I just use the same philosophy. I'm not trying to steal those guys. You know, there's guys that are with managers that I know, and I would never I don't poach. So, like, those, in my opinion, those guys should have no issue with their guys coming to my room, because I'm not going to be like, hey, man, like, you know, I could manage you too. Like, it's a lot easier to have everything in-house, but I don't. I just, okay, when you're fighting, cool, let's get ready. You know, am I cornering you? Cool. All right, let's go. Let's get ready. So it's just how I look at it. But unfortunately, that's not how a lot of people act. There's just so much poaching going on the coaching side and the management side.
Well, I mean, you've achieved a lot as a coach too, though. You're MMA Junkie 2020 Coach of the Year. I mean, what's giving you the most satisfaction out of that role? Is there really a particular moment or achievement that you've had recently that stands out for you?
I mean, everybody wants to. They probably want to hear me say like, "Oh, getting Coach of the Year." That's cool. That like honestly, like the coach thing, that was more of like almost like a validation to my family, like my wife, her family. Like here, they don't really know if I'm good. Can your wife tell you if you're good at interviewing? Probably not. Like your girlfriend, they don't know. Like,
She doesn't
but
watch
then
my interviews.
that's what I'm saying. Like, my wife doesn't watch mine. So like, it was just cool to get that validation because all that time away from the kids, all that time traveling. And then for me to be like, listen, I think we're doing something good here. I think we're doing something good. And then for her to just see someone else put that label out there and say, hey, listen, like, and obviously it's a paper award, right? But like for someone else to say, I'm just even in the conversation of like, hey, this guy's doing something good over here. It's worth paying attention to. Like that type of validation back home really meant a lot. And then I think as my kids get older, it's like that'll always be there. It's like, no, 1 year my dad was Coach of the Year. That's something that they can be like, he is good. Not that I needed that to think like what we were doing was good, but it's cool to get that validation somewhere else. Um, but that, honestly, like to me, that's not what like motivates me. The biggest moments, it's like what we did with Connor Matthews. He went to the Contender Series and he lost to a kid who was like 5 or 6-0, and he wasn't training with us. And that was when we were a little bit more closed off. We didn't have as many guys on the team. We were trying to just really focus on like not growing, just to rob a Calvin. Then we kind of shifted and changed. But Connor Matthews went out there and had a hell of a fight, but he lost. And then he came to me, and I was managing Connor at the time, and I was never trying to get him to come train with us. And then he came to me, he's like, listen, like, I need to change some stuff up. Like, can I come and train with you? And I was like, well, let me talk to the team. Like, when I talked to the team, I was like, hey, guys, I really think Connor would be a benefit to have on the team. Like, let's get him in here. He's going to work with younger guys. He'll be good for Rob and Calvin. Like, come in, his military background. He's a very, like a respectful, like, yes, sir, thank you, sir, shows up on time, works hard. And he came in, and he had, like, a lot of holes in his game. Like, he came in, and you were like, wow, like, this, okay, like, this kid's tough. He's athletic, but we got to, like, revamp him. And I think when you look at that fight he had against Frank Marshall, and then you fast forward a year, and the fight he had against I can't remember Yuri, I don't know, the Brazilian kid,
Yeah, yeah.
Farias, or something like that, and Yair Faris, something like that. But a 10-0 Brazilian who's 6'1", scary looking, and he went out there and he like fought a very tough kid, but like made great. He still made some mistakes, but like you saw, if you go back and watch that 2022 fight and the 2023 fight, you see the evolution that he made in a year. And I'm not going to take credit for that. Like he has other coaches, but like the system that we have produced that like improvement. So like that's what I'm most, because I think the guys that have been with you forever, you don't know what you don't know. But then when someone comes in and then you're like, wow, that was exponential. Like, the guys that are with us forever, little improvement, little improvement. It's hard to notice. But then when you see like, you have something like that stands out and you see like, wow, this kid went from losing to a 5-0 kid that hadn't really beat anybody to beating like a stud of a kid and like doing it with like, 30-27 on two of the cards and like making good decisions in the fight, doing things in that fight that he didn't know how to do 8 months prior, and doing it on the biggest stage. And, his whole theme over that year was like, just become undeniable. Dana doesn't want 31-year-olds, but I'm just going to be undeniable. So like, when I look at that stuff, I think that's what like I'm most proud of, because that's not about me. That's a reflection of like what we are producing as a whole. His training partners chip into that. The other coaches chip into that. Obviously I play a role in that. He plays a role in that. So like, I think it's stuff like that resonates a lot more with me um, than anything else.
Well, and hats off to you on that one too, man. Because I honestly, when it went to the cards, I was like, man, that was a good fight. I don't know if they're going to if they're going to give him the contract though, but it was really cool for Dana and Hunter and all those guys to actually give him the contract, not of everything else that was against him, right? That they saw the talent, they saw the way that he grew there, and that speaks highly of you and the team. I guess like looking ahead for the aspirations for New England Cartel and your athletes, are there any specific goals or milestones you're looking to achieve here in 2024 and moving forward?
we just gotta start winning some fights. Like we 2023 wasn't the best year in terms of records wise for us, but Calvin didn't even get to fight. Rob had a busy year, but it was a tough year.
Mm.
He I don't think that I don't have the candy code. I don't think he performed how he'd want to perform this year. So we gotta internally figure out, okay, how do we get Rob better prepared? Like there's a part of that that's on us. Me and the coaching staff, and we have those conversations. Like, what can we do? Because the Rob that showed up against Figgy and what's the Corey Sandhagen
Corey.
isn't he definitely didn't perform what he's capable of performing. So like, how can we get him better ready so that we do perform on fight night? Because I always say this is like, camp is camp. You can have a shit camp, you can have an awesome camp, doesn't matter. It's whoever shows up for those 15 or 25 minutes. That's all that matters, right? And how do we increase the chance that next time Rob steps in the octagon, that we're the guy that shows up? And that's what we're going to try to figure that out, and we're going to put our best foot forward on that. But hopefully in 2024 is like, it's like, I don't necessarily set like metrics or goals. It's just like, I just want to keep getting better. And then I think success follows like a winning mindset and a culture. And I think as the team's grown over the last year, we went from literally like little over a year ago, having 4 fighters to now having, a little over 20 fighters, and then a bunch of other guys coming in cross training. So I think what I've been trying to establish over that time is like building a culture on the team. Like the Patriots, that like, do your job, all that stuff. It's like, I'm just trying to build a culture with these guys of like, we truly are a team. You're there for each other. We wear each other's wins and losses. Showing up on time, being disciplined, trying to be the hardest worker in the room every time. That way you're pushing your training partners, and just trying to build that culture of like, yeah, this might be an individual sport, but I'm on a team and I'm going to be there for my teammates. And I think if we can just all do our part and do that, it's going to raise the level of the whole room, and the success will come from that. That's really just kind of my goal for 2024, I guess, if you say. It's like, is to just keep improving the culture on the team, and then like, and that takes time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. You can't just be like, hey, we're going to be the Patriots now. It's like, you're like, cool, like we don't have 6 Super Bowls. But the Patriots weren't the Patriots before they were the Patriots, like, so it's like, how can we start that transformation now and just keep chipping away at it every day, so that way next year at this time when we look back, we're like, man, look how much closer our team is, look how much more fluid we are, look how much more like of a well-oiled machine we are, and look how much better we are. And if, like, those are the things you can control. And like, if we had a team motto, it would always be, I tell the guys, like, I know this sucks, but like, let's focus on what we can control. And what we can control is our attitude, our effort, our energy, and just thinking about like showing up on time and working hard. Like, other than that, it's like, it's all wasted energy. So man, it's
The
it's
small
fun.
incremental things, the
Yeah,
little things that people are willing to look past.
yeah. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
So, I mean, just wrapping up here, I know you guys got a great team. You got some great people under you. Are there any athletes in the camp that we should be keeping an eye out for coming up this year?
Dude, Mitch Raposo's on fire right now. He's won 3 in a row since the Contender Series with all by finish. He's got a title fight coming up against. He's number 1 in the Northeast right now at 125. He's fighting the number 2 guy, January 27th for Combat Zone. He's looking to make it 4 finishes in a row. He's only 25, and watching how much better he's been since being on the Contender Series is like impressive. Like, he's made some mental growth, obviously physical too, but like the mental's catching up. Chris Matino, 3 wins since the Contender, since his UFC stand where he fought O'Malley on like 9 days notice, and looked
Yeah, that was a
respectable.
tough one. Yeah.
And then like, he's got 3 wins. That kid he has such a good ground game, but just never used it in the UFC. I'm excited for him. Like, I feel like he's very close to getting back in. He's an exciting fighter. He has an exciting style. Trying to get him back in. And then obviously, Nick Fiore went 0-2 this year. He's still putting a lot of work. He'll be making his first fight since UFC at the end of February. Tom Pags, he's one of our OGs. He's still putting in the work. Yeah, and then we have some amateurs coming up through. Like, it's fun, man. It's like, it's good seeing these guys. Like, the journey to the UFC is almost like more fun than once you get there, because once you get there, it's pretty stressful. but then like it's like big dreams, like, you're just trying to become that UFC fighter. So it's kind of like us versus the world mentality. And then when you get in there, then it's a lot more stuff to worry about.
Yeah, it turns very business like very quickly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, hey, man, I appreciate you doing this. You guys are building something special there. I mean, you just see all the people coming through there, whether it's other professional athletes outside of fighters, actors. I mean, it's been pretty cool to see just the quality of people that aren't just coming in, but that you're putting out. And so really looking forward to seeing all those guys stepping back up this year and seeing some wins there back in the column. I appreciate you doing this. I know that a lot of people are going to get value out of this. There aren't a lot of people that are playing both that role of coach and manager. So I think this was a really unique perspective and looking forward to getting people's thoughts on it.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.